So today I'm going to show you how to change your door lock actuator in your 4th Gen F body. And here are some of the tools that you're going to need. You're going to need your actuators. You're going to need a number 3 Phillips, a flathead screwdriver, some pliers. I have a number 2 Phillips and a 1/4-inch drive screwdriver, and then a T10 Torx bit, a T30 Torx bit, and then I just have a 1/4-inch wrench that I can put the bits in, a utility knife, an impact in case the bolts are a little too tight, and then I always have some gloves, some Gorilla Tape, and then a bucket to sit on. So to start, you're going to take your screwdrivers and undo the door panel. And pull off the connectors for the switches. And then there's a couple number 3 Phillips screws that you have to undo in the door panel. There's one there, one here, one down here, and then one in the tray. So there's a screw here, a screw here, a screw in there, and then a screw right there. And then to take the door panel off, you're gonna lift up and pull out, but you don't want to pull it all the way off because you have to disconnect the speaker wires. See if I can show. You have to disconnect this wire right here. I'll try and do it one-handed. Then you can take your door panel off and set it to the side. Now that your door panel's off, you have to take off this plastic weather stripping. And sometimes you might need to use a hairdryer or a heat gun, but you want to be careful not to pull all of the glue off. As you can see, I was in here before and used Gorilla Tape, and that's what the Gorilla Tape's for when we reassemble it, because this car is almost 30 years old. The glue is not very good anymore, especially after it's been pulled off. But you want to be careful not to rip it, and it should come right off. Now we get to the door lock actuator, which is in here. So we have to disconnect all these metal rods, and I'll see if I can get a better angle to show you. So we're inside the door panel here, looking at the lock actuator, and as you can see, there's 4 metal rods that hold the actuator in place. And then there's one here, and then there's one behind here. And the first thing you have to do is disconnect all these rods. But as you can see at this metal rod with the black clip, take a mental note of where that is, because when you put it back together, you want it to be in the same spot. So to disconnect this black clip, you just have to pull it off from one side and it pivots. Let's see. Now you can see that it's open. And then you just pull the rod out like that. And then you can work on disconnecting all of these other rods. And they kind of just snap out of the little holders that they're in. It's a little difficult to show, but you want to be careful not to bend the rod as you pull it off. I figured since I'm on the bench and it might be a little easier to see, I could help you with taking the metal rods that are in the door that activate the locks, and I could show you how to pop them out a little bit easier. So as you can see, they kind of just go in right here, like that, right here, like that, and then right here, like that. And then this rod is where the threaded rod was clamped into place. So this clip is just snapped into place and you just pop it off. And these ones are a little bit trickier because they're kind of really tight into place. So I found it's helpful if you take a screwdriver and kind of pop them out of place like this. Make sure it's in camera view. But if it's in here like that, and I'm not pressing it all the way in, but if you just pry it out like that, and the same thing with this one, you just take your screwdriver and you pop it out like that. Now I had to kind of pull on the rod like this way to get it out, but you got to be really careful not to bend your rods as you're pulling her out, or else it'll be all tweaked, and then when it goes back together, it's not going to work right. It was a little difficult to show with the camera and having my hands in there, but once you've disconnected the rods, then you can come back on the outside and grab your T30 Torx bit and disconnect these three right here. But make sure that you've disconnected this outlet right here, which is your power to the actuator. Good. And this is where you can use the 1/4-inch wrench or your impact if you have one. So once you have all your bolts loose, you can start taking them out, and make sure you have your hand on the inside of the car to catch the actuator, because once you take this last bolt out, it'll just fall right out. And here it is. So now here we are on the bench. We have our old actuator in its assembly, and we have our new actuator that's ready to go in. So this is where you can take your T10 Torx bit, and you're gonna loosen up these two right here. Now once you have those off, your assembly is ready to come out, but take a mental note of where the teeth are in your actuator. So let me show you with the new actuator. You can see the teeth in the little gear can move, and you want to make sure your new one goes in the exact same spot that your old one came out. But to take the old one out, it kind of just pops out, and then this cam is stuck in at the top right here, and you just want to angle it and pop it out. And this one came out without the little cam on the end. That's okay. We'll just have to pull that out. Maybe grab your pair of pliers. Where did it go? Right here. So you can grab that and pull the little ear out, and there it is. So this is the little ear that went on cam lobe right there. And you want to make sure the new one goes on the exact same way that the old one came off. So we can see where our gear is at on this one. So we want to put that in the same spot, which it is. And then we put this new one in. You can take it in from the top right here. You might have to slide this arm out of the way and then just angle it inward and just pop it in. If it'll go. Which, there it is. Then we want to make sure our gears are lined up at the bottom, right here. And now we know that our ear is in right here. We can tighten the screws back up. So when I had it initially, it was just a little off, but this arm extends up and down. So once your little lobe is in up here, you can pull it like this and see how it's separated right here. And then you can line the teeth up and then just push it together, and then you can put your screws in. Because you want to make sure it's lined up and everything is flush, or else it's not going to work right, or it'll break the teeth off the gears, and then you're going to go through this all again. And that's no fun. Now these screws weren't very tight originally, so you definitely don't want to strip them out, but just make sure they're good and tight, I guess. And here's your assembly, ready to go back in the car. So here we are with our new assembly, ready to go back in the car. And it's pretty simple. Same way as you took it out, just make sure everything's lined up correctly. So as you can see, it fits in just like this. So we're gonna put it inside the door, and we have our T30 Torx bit ready with our screws that came out of the car to put it in. So here's one, 2, and 3. And then these just need tightened up. And there's not much play in the lock itself, so you don't have to really worry about aligning it, because once you screw it in, it kind of aligns itself. Same torque measurement, just good and tight. And then you're ready to reconnect all of your rods. Let's see if I can get a good angle. All of these rods. And with this one, you want to make sure it's facing the correct way. As you can see, there's all these bends on this side, and then you have your protector and the one bend on the other side, and this just snaps into this rubber piece, just like so. So we're back inside the car now, ready to snap all of our rods back into the correct place. So you want to make sure you get this one into this hole, and it's really hard to see, but it just pops into place, and luckily putting it back together is much easier than taking it apart. And then you have this rod that goes right in here, if I can find it. there. And then you have this rod down here. And then the same thing as when you took it apart, you have your mental note of where your threaded rod should be at in this little clip. So somewhere about there. And now you want to make sure you plug in your actuator. And now you're ready to test it to see if it works. And you want to make sure all of these rods are operational and they do what they're supposed to. So let's look outside the car. So each of these rods have a function. This one, open the door. This is your lock and unlock. And then the two that were in this side of the door is for your handle and your key barrel. So to test, to make sure if your lock worked, you have to re-plug in your switch. So to test to see if it works, you're going to have to re-plug in your lock switch. Let's see if, and you can even see that this rod is moving. Now you also want to make sure it works with the key. So you have unlock, and this is the passenger door, so you have to press it twice. And lock. So that looks like it works. So you also want to make sure your door handle and your key works on the outside. So for this, we're going to very carefully close the door and make sure we're not going to squish this wiring right here. I might have to get it from this side because I'm trying to do everything one-handed. Let's see. Right there, make sure that goes inside the door. That way we can close it. There we go. So, it's locked. Unlock. Handle opens, closes. It's unlocked. Locked. Works. And then we also want to make sure the key, so lock. Unlock, works, lock, locked, works. Perfect. So now you know that all your actuator and all of your locks and rods are all working correctly. So once you see that everything's working correctly, you can start putting your door back together. So we plugged this in as a test. You want to make sure we unplug that, set it off to the side, and we will need the plastic wrap. Also, make sure you didn't leave anything inside the door, or any screws or anything is inside the door, because that is what will rattle and be annoying. So I have Gorilla Tape because the glue is not very good, but we're going to stick it down. You want to make sure your handle is outside and kind of just line everything up with where it was before. And you also want to make sure your wiring goes through the right holes. This is your tweeter, and then you have all your window and lock controls, and there's also the light for the little door handle, and everything kind of just sticks back together. Good. You also want to make sure this lock is in the right spot and is showing. Now we can take the door panel and start putting that back into place in the same way. So let's see if I can show. There are these little teeth that are angled up at the bottom, so it has to drop in from the top and slowly get pushed in, but we don't want to push it all the way in yet because we have to hook up our tweeter. Let's see, that is this wire right here. If I can do it one-handed again. And perfect. Okay. Now we have our door panel. And you want to make sure the clips are lined up in the right holes. Also, pull your wiring through right here so it doesn't get trapped behind the door. Let's see. There it is. And then once you feel like it's flush with the door, you can bang it downwards and it should pop into place. It's our quality 90s GM. Perfect. Quality. Anyways, we'll grab our number 3 Phillips and all of our screws that we took out of the door panel. And we will screw in this screw right here. Right here. Now to put this piece back in, there's 2 pieces. There's this little piece that is the lock, and then there's the door handle piece. So to put this back on, you want to put your first piece on, maybe shove the wiring down into the switch panel, and then you want to make sure your metal rod, let's see if you can see it, comes through the hole for your door handle piece. As you push the handle on. Let's get a close up. So you have your rod through the hole right here. And then this, you see the little hole right there, it just snaps on. So put it all the way to the left and then push it on. Perfect. And then there you go. And then you want to screw this back on with your number 2 Phillips. So you want to screw this back in right here. Find the hole. There it is. Screw it in. Except don't do that yet. You have to plug in the little light. So this, let's get a better angle. So before you screw this piece in, there's this little light that feeds underneath this little plastic piece. Let's see, it's a little difficult to show with one hand, but it goes through here, under this plastic piece, and then gets fed up through here, if I can grab it with one hand. There we go. Here's a light. This just pops in right here. Pops in and twists. It's locked in. There you go. Make sure everything's back into place. And then you can screw this hole in. So once this piece is screwed in, then you can plug in your switches. Lock, window. Make sure they're the right ones. And then this just snaps into place. And then let's see if it works. Perfect. So now that we've installed it and put the door back together and we verified it works again, we're good to go. So not too difficult of a job. I give it like a 3 or 4 out of 10. The hardest part is definitely popping the little rods out of the actuator assembly itself. Depends how your car is, if it wants to be nice that day or not. But the driver's side is the exact same. The only difference is that the motors are just flipped. Very simple, same thing. Hopefully it helped you guys out, and thank you for watching.